All right, welcome everyone to Mindset Monday. I'm Jen O'Sullivan, board certified naturopathic practitioner. I believe that renewing our bodies and our minds and our relationship with God is how we get to true wellness. Okay, so my mission is to help you rethink what you've been taught about health and learn practical steps forward toward becoming the healthiest version of yourself. Okay, so I want you to grab your glass of water, take a deep breath and a sip. Okay, not at the same time. It's kind of hard to do. We're going to settle in for a few minutes and just invest a few minutes into the most valuable asset that you have, right? That's you. Okay, so today's quote is often attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, and many of you have probably heard this, but comparison is the thief of joy. So comparison quietly slips into our lives and begins taking things from us. Okay, so when you start comparing yourself to others or things, right, it starts to steal your gratitude. It steals our peace. It steals our confidence. It steals our contentment. Eventually, it can make us feel as though the life that God has given us is somehow inadequate. So, we compare our health to someone else's health. We compare our body to someone else's body, our marriage, maybe our home, our children, our finances, our business, ministry, friendships, success, what we look like, even our spiritual journey, we compare to other people. And sometimes comparison motivates us to grow, right? But more often, it causes us to measure our private struggles against someone else's very public victories, right? So social media has made that even easier than ever, right? So adults across developed countries were recently found to spend, on average, approximately 2 hours and 20 minutes every day on social media. I'm like, what's yours? Okay, so this is developed countries across the world, on average, 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes on social media every day. That adds up to about 850 hours every year, or over 35 days of scrolling through other people's lives. So think about that. More than an entire month every year. So here's a little homework. I want you to open your phone, check your screen time. So like on an iPhone, go to settings and then screen time. And even then tap see all app and website activity. If you have an Android phone, open your settings. It's the tap your digital well-being and parental controls and then look at your dashboard, okay? You can go back and scroll through and see what your weekly averages have been. So take an honest look at that number. And I'm just being honest here. Mine was almost 3.5 hours per day. That's a lot. I actually did the math on it and I didn't quite believe the math. It was 53 days on my phone per year. I'm like, come on, that can't be right. Let's do that math again. Okay, but that's part of the interesting thing is like you don't know until you know. And there's no need to shame yourself. Like I'm not sitting there going like, Jen, right? I do my whole business on my phone, right? And I love the fact that I can do my business on my phone. But it's a really important thing to simply be aware and ask yourself, is my phone helping me build the life I want? Or is it distracting me from fully living it? So like Tim's always like, get off your phone. And I'm like, well, I'm working. So I understand there is work time, but then there's social media doom scrolling, right? And when that happens, it's like, how do I determine how many hours were that versus my work time, right? So part of it is, some of it is watching other people's lives while overlooking the life unfolding right in front of us. Right? You go to a coffee shop or wherever and you see everyone on their phones. Like at one point we were walking down the street and I said, what's happening here? Is there something going on here? Because everyone is like standing in a line, but they're not in a line. Like nobody was in a line for everything. I think they were just standing out of the sun, but they were all like this. And I'm like, is something going on that I don't know? And I was like, actually just life, right? Okay, I want you to picture yourself walking into an art museum. Every wall is covered with masterpieces. You're going to see the best paintings created by hundreds of talented artists over hundreds of years. And after looking around for a while, you begin to feel discouraged. Like, because you've been painting this thing for a while, you've been trying to do this artwork piece that you're doing, and it doesn't look like any of these. And you've forgotten something. You're comparing your unfinished learning piece with an entire museum filled with completed masterpieces, right? And that's what happens sometimes with social media. We've talked about this before. You start seeing someone else's beautiful life, their vacation, anniversary celebration, whatever, right? Their spotless kitchen, or their beautifully prepared meal, or their kids that are all perfect, and you don't see the argument that happened right before the picture. Right? I let you in last Monday on the fact that I had to do like an open Q&A before our actual Monday night session instead of the actual teaching segment, because right as I was sitting here ready to press the go live button, Tim walked by and threw a bombshell at me. And I mean, this is what we do as husband and wife, right? And he said something that I was boiling. And I was like, how do I sit there and I erupted at him, like, really? Like right now, And he just kept walking. I mean, it's the funny thing as spouses, right? We have arguments, things happen, but I'm like, how do I like stop and take a deep breath and start and be like, hi guys, right? That's what you have to do, right? And that's life. But we don't see that side of it. Nobody's showing the ugly, typically, right? You actually don't ever see the debt someone created from the vacation they just posted. You don't see the years of work that they had to go through and failure for the business achievement, right? You don't see the massive health struggle that happened behind the incredible transformation. When you see these before and afters, it's like, well, I don't really see the before. I might hear the before, but I wanted to see the before because it doesn't really make any sense to me, because all I see is you look great, right? So researchers are, starting to understand the toll that this is taking. So they did this systematic review, they examined 57 different studies involving close to 600,000 people from 21 different countries, okay? They found that greater daily social media use was associated with increased stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, and poor sleep. It was also associated with lower self-esteem and lower life satisfaction. Who knew that was a thing, right? Lower life satisfaction. Association does not mean that social media alone caused every one of those issues. The finding still gives us a good reason to pay attention to how your online, my online habits might affect my thoughts and my emotions, my sleep, my relationships. So the encouraging news is that many people are already recognizing the need for healthier boundaries. They did this study just last year, 2025. They did a poll. It was from the American Psychiatric Association. And they found that half of American adults had intentionally limited their social media use during that year. People are beginning to wake up and recognize that constant access does not always create greater connection. Okay. Researchers have also studied what happens when people reduce their social media use. Are you ready for it? Okay. So they did this study in young adults, and the participants who completed a 1-week social media moratorium, right? Or detox, they're calling it, right? No social media. They experienced an average of 24.8% reduction in depression symptoms, a 16.1% reduction in anxiety symptoms, and a 14.5% reduction in insomnia symptoms. Just 1 week. 7 days of reducing the constant stream of information, opinions, images, advertisements, achievements, and comparisons, right, was associated with measurable improvements. Okay, so the study involved young adults, so we shouldn't automatically assume that every person of every age will experience the same percentages, but it still gives us something worth considering. your mind may benefit from having fewer opportunities to measure your life against someone else's. And the Bible spoke about this comparison long before smartphones, right? Galatians 6:4 says, "But let each one of us test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor." Okay? The instruction is to examine your own work, your own growth, your own faithfulness, your own progress. God has given you a specific life to steward. He has given you particular gifts, experiences, relationships, opportunities, challenges, responsibilities, right? Your assignment will not look like anyone else's. Imagine two different trees growing beside each other, right? One tree grows tall and quick. It begins spreading its branches. The other one appears to grow more slowly because much of its early development is happening beneath the ground. Its roots are pushing deeper into the soil, preparing it to withstand future storms. Would we call the second tree a failure? Of course not, right? Each tree is growing according to its design and environment, and people do this too, right? One person maybe heals quicker than another. Another person's body requires more time and support. One person's business grows rapidly while another one's growing steadily over many years. Maybe one person finds their purpose early and another discovers a new calling later in life. One family may appear peaceful and prosperous while quietly navigating struggles that no one else can see. You cannot accurately judge your journey by looking at someone else's visible results. Comparison also causes us to overlook our own progress, right? We become so focused on how far ahead someone else appears to be that we forget how far we've already come. So think about who you were 5 years ago. Consider what you've learned, what you've survived, the habits that have changed for you, the boundaries you've established. Consider the wisdom you've gained through painful experiences, and consider all the prayers that God has answered, including the ones he's maybe answered differently than you expected. Like, would the version of you from 5 years ago be proud of some part of who you are today? I believe the answer is probably yes. And this is how God sanctifies you even through your spiritual growth. So give yourself permission to recognize that growth. And gratitude is one of the strongest protections against the comparison trap. Comparison directs your attention toward what someone else has, and gratitude directs your attention toward what God has already placed in your hands. You may have a faithful spouse or a loyal friend, a child who calls you, right? A safe place to sleep, a body that continues carrying you throughout each day, the opportunity to begin again, the freedom to learn, a sunrise outside your window, maybe a quiet cup of tea or a Bible that you can open freely, right? Think about that. These blessings can be invisible when our attention is consumed by someone else's life. So here's the reset. I want you to check your screen time first, okay? Look at your daily average. Look at your weekly average. Identify the apps that are receiving the greatest amount of your time. And then I want you to choose one small boundary for the next week, the next 7 days. You could set a daily time limit. Maybe you could remove one app that you really shouldn't be on anymore. Maybe you could avoid social media for the first hour of the morning, right? You could keep your phone out of the bedroom. You could choose one full day this week away from social media. You could even do an entire 7-day break. Okay. Use those reclaimed minutes to invest in your own life. Take a walk, read your Bible, pray, call someone you love, right? Cook something that you haven't done before that's nourishing. Work on a goal, right? I got a new journal this week, and I'm like, I love writing things. It slows me down. Rest, create something, right? Your life deserves your attention. And finally, after every time that you catch yourself comparing, I want you to pause and name 3 things for which you're grateful. Thank God for what he's doing in your life today. You don't have to fully understand your timeline to understand and trust the one who holds it, right? God didn't create you to copy someone else's story. He created you to faithfully live the one he's entrusted to you. So protect your joy, celebrate your progress, Pay attention to your own assignment. Trust God's timing. And remember, today's quote was comparison is the thief of joy. Okay, thanks for sharing with me today, hanging out with me today for a little bit of time, a little bit more than 10 minutes, right? I think we're at 15 minutes. Share this episode with someone who may need a reminder that their life, their progress, their journey, they're worth celebrating. And this week, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do 3 sessions instead of 5. We're going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're going to do Wellness Wednesday and Fitness and Food Friday. So you never know what you're going to get, food or fitness on Friday. But this Wednesday, are going to be covering a very interesting connection that your liver has to your hormones. So if you're interested in learning more about your liver and your hormones, come visit on Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday. Okay, have an amazing Mindset Monday. Take care and be blessed.